A lot of talk, especially on Twitter, about Wilder being the biggest puncher in the history of boxing. Where do you think he ranks in the heavyweight division as being the biggest puncher in the history of the sport, in the heavyweight division and in the sport as a whole?
Well, I mean, that's a big question. And, I mean, you're talking about a sport that's been around for 200 years. So I'm glad you qualified it. It's a heavyweight division, sport. Two separate places there. But I jotted down some notes for myself. I just want to make them available to myself on that because I know that the fans, they're asking that question, and I take it serious. First of all, he's got the highest. If you go by percentages, you can't go by stats. Stats lie to you. Just like you see some guys, how many yards they got receiving in a football game, Ken. And you see it during garbage time. You see it when the scrubs are in there. I shouldn't say scrubs. When the backups, nobody's a scrub that can make the freaking NFL. And nobody's a scrub that can at least get in the ring. At least they got something that they're facing that a lot of people can't face and can't do. But the backups are in there. So in the last 2 minutes, you might gain 200 yards receiving. You might catch 7 passes, in a game that's a 45-0 blowout. But again, those stats, come on. How real are they? They're not real. So, you got to question them. So I'm going to say that it's only fair to say that, I know he has the highest knockout percentage, and he might wind up with the highest knockout percentage of all time. He's had 42 fights, I believe, Wilder, and he's knocked out 41 guys. Wow, that's a pretty good knockout percentage. But who's he knocked out? I mean, and again, power is power. And I'm going to get to where I need to get to and give him full credit. But I'm also going to explore the areas that need to be explored before I give it to him. He's knocked out, there's been a lot of mailmen and milkmen on that list, and bakers. That's a good combination. Bakers and milkmen. That goes together pretty well. I didn't even think about that. That's a perfect combination. But there's a lot of, there's a lot of bakers and mailmen on that list. And look, I know all the heavyweights, all the fighters have a certain amount of bakers and mailmen on their list, on their resume. It's part of the game to build a guy up. But man, this guy's got the all-time record for some of them. So part of it is who you're knocking out. But still, power is power. Power is power. And the impact is the impact. The force is the force. And there's no disputing that he has that kind of power to be up there with anybody. I'm going to touch on some of the names. When you're talking about the history of the sport, first of all, I mean, you got Sugar Ray Robinson. You got Lou Jenkins. Probably a lot of people never heard of him. He was a lightweight. I mean, he was as skinny as a pencil. But again, Wilder's skinny too. To me, that's always the guys you got to look out for. Bob Foster, the great light heavyweight champ. I mean, they were thin, wiry guys. They get leverage. They get torque in their punches. I mean, that's where the power comes from. That's where it emanates from. A lot of people think it's got to be all muscle. No. It's, Tommy Hearns, skinny guy. So you got guys like Lou Jenkins, Carlos Zarate, bantamweight champion. He had 58 knockouts. I'm thinking about you fans out there. I just wanted to give you just a little something to chew on. You get nothing with that soup behind my man, and I love my man. You're getting nothing with the soup, but I want to give you a little meat to go with that soup, with that clam chow. Give it to the clams. And 58 knockouts in 65 fights. Carlos Zarate, bantamweight champ. Sandy Sadler, featherweight champion. He had 103. You ready for this, Ken? 103 knockouts in his career. 103. Archie Moore, light heavyweight champ. 130 knockouts in his career. Yeah, there were a few bakers. There was a couple bakers, but there were a lot of good fighters back in those days that they were fighting. A lot more than what they're doing right now. Again, like it or not, truth Just the truth, baby. Just the truth. So Adonis Stevenson, I mean, a great the light heavyweight champion that held the title for 5.5 years. What a puncher. I got to see him firsthand, up close, impersonal. That guy could punch with anybody. Now, just heavyweights. Well, pretty impressive company. I'm going to talk about guys that punch just with the right hand, and that's what Wilder does, just the right hand. Max Baer, he could punch with the right hand. 52 knockouts in 83 fights, not bad. He started his career the first 18 months. He fought 27 times, winning 20 by knockout. You ready for this? He scored 100 knockdowns in less than 100 rounds. Well, there was a few bakers there. Okay, there were a couple bakers. Definitely. The cream pie got destroyed. I mean, the Boston cream, I'm using Boston cream, Ken, because I love you. The Boston cream all over the canvas. But still, power is power. And then you got Ernie Shavers. 68 knockouts in 89 fights. Again, right hand. Knock a building down. And then you got to go and you got to switch a little bit. You got to go to guys like Tyson. I mean, I know a lot of people think, oh, you don't like Tyson. Well, no, I say what I think. And he belongs up there. And he could punch with either hand. That's what differentiated him. So what are we saying? Well, one punch? Yeah, one punch knockout? Okay. But Tyson had one punch knockout with either hand. Left or right. You choose it. Another one, George Foreman. 68 knockouts in 81 fights. Wow, his first career before he retired and came back. Anyway, I'm glad he came back, except I'm not happy that he did the one fight that he did with my guy. But again, I saw his power firsthand. His first career, Ken, before he retired, he had knocked out 42 of 47 fighters. So, and then you got the great Joe Louis. I mean, Joe Louis could punch with either hand, and nobody finished guys better than Joe Louis. He had 54 knockouts in 71 fights, could punch with either hand. And then you had Rocky Marciano. I know there's some Marciano fans, they're going to go nuts if I don't mention him. Go nuts. And 43 knockouts in 49 fights. And then you had the great Cuban amateur, 3-time Olympic gold medalist, Teofilio Stevenson. In all his Olympic fights, only one opponent went the distance because he ran around the ring for 3 rounds. So, listen, having said all of that, putting all that out there, I'm going to say Wilder's the greatest heavyweight punch I ever saw.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to say that. I'm going to say for one punch, I don't care if he's, they're tough bakers, that some of them that he's knocking out. Some of those plumbers he's knocking out, they're tough plumbers. But still, you got to have power to do what he does. And so as far as the sport of boxing, let's just say, obviously, if I got him number one in the heavyweights as the greatest puncher I've ever seen, I have him up there in really great company in the history of the sport in any weight class. Obviously, he'll be up there. We'll hold off on saying he's the greatest puncher in the sport of boxing, any weight class. But for heavyweights, and that's pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. I'm going to say that, yeah, he can bang. Yeah.
I'm sure he's going to be happy to hear that.
And I'll finish it with this. As I always say, punches are born. They're not made.
I'm sure Deontay Wilder will be happy to hear that, and we'll look to have him on as a guest in the build-up for his rematch with Tyson Fury, and that fight's been announced February 22nd at MGM Grand, I believe, is the final venue.